Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take some really fascinating insights, cut through all the clutter, and pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge just for you. Today, we're taking a deep dive into something that feels, well, almost a bit radical in our super connected world. It's the power of solitude, unlocking inner strength in a noisy world by engineer Reuben Juma Onunga. Our goal, to help you quickly get up to speed on why maybe, just maybe, embracing a bit of quiet could be the superpower you didn't even know you were looking for. Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. We live in what's probably the loudest time in human history, right? Screens, notifications, constant demands. The very idea of solitude, of being deliberately alone, feels almost rebellious. We're just so wired for input, for connection. But what if stepping back from all that noise is actually the key to finding our inner strength, our clarity, maybe even our creativity?
That's exactly the question Anunga tackles. And, his timing is spot on. He paints this picture of a world just overwhelmed by busyness, distraction, constant stimulation. And in that kind of environment, voices like his, they're not just interesting, they feel, well, essential. What I find really compelling is his background. He's a professional engineer, so he brings this very practical, grounded viewpoint to something that can often feel quite philosophical. He merges the practical with the profound. This isn't just abstract thinking. It's meant as a practical guide for navigating your own inner world, real-world stuff.
And right away, he hits on this massive misunderstanding, doesn't he?
Yeah.
The difference between being in solitude and feeling lonely. It sounds simple, but I think, a lot of us probably blur those lines without even realizing it, and maybe that stops us from seeking out that quiet time.
Absolutely. That's ground zero for him. He really wants to reshape how we even think about it. He argues that solitude isn't this emptiness we should fear. It's actually a presence we can embrace. He wants to guide you away from seeing it as like a lack of something and towards seeing it as a kind of fullness. It's a total reframing. Like he's saying, okay, forget what you thought being alone meant.
Right.
He puts it really well. Solitude is not weakness, but strength. Not absence, but presence. Not isolation, but illumination.
Okay, so to really get that, we need to dig into chapter 1, Solitude versus Loneliness, the Great Misunderstanding. He says they're worlds apart. One's a treasure, the other's a torment. It really makes you think, doesn't it? How often might you avoid being alone simply because you're afraid of feeling lonely, even if they're not the same thing?
It's such a common confusion. And Anunga's definitions, they really help draw that line in the sand. He describes loneliness as the cold ache of absence, that feeling. That deep longing for connection that just isn't there. A feeling of being cut off, even if you're surrounded by people. He uses examples like a widow feels in the stillness of her house after the last visitor has left. Or even the modern man feels even in a crowded room.
Wow.
That internal emptiness.
Yeah.
Crucially, loneliness is about the absence of meaningful connection. Solitude, though, he defines as the quiet embrace of presence. It's intentional. It's about being fully with yourself, and for some, with God or the divine. Think of that sacred silence of the early morning, maybe, or the stillness of a retreat. It's not about being without others. It's about being fully with yourself, your inner world.
And he uses this analogy, it really stuck with me, the seed analogy. He says, think of a seed planted in the soil. It's cut off from the light. It's in the dark. From the outside, yeah, it looks like burial, like death almost. But the seed isn't lonely down there. It's in solitude. That's a powerful image.
It really is powerful. And he finishes this so well. He says, loneliness says, I am buried. Solitude says, I am planted. The difference, he points out, isn't the dark environment itself, it's the perspective. It's the intention. Loneliness, he explains, is often something that just happens to you. It feels imposed, unwelcome. But solitude is chosen. Loneliness tends to weaken us. Solitude strengthens. Loneliness feels like a prison, trapping you. Solitude sets you free, opens you up. That choice, that active decision, that's a game changer.
Right. And once we make that choice, embrace that solitude, Onunga says those quiet times can be incredibly transformative. He argues silence isn't just, nothingness. It's actually a teacher, full of lessons we miss in the daily grind. So moving into chapter 2, silence as a teacher. What does it teach us? What are we potentially missing out on in all the noise?
Yeah, silence as a classroom. It's a great way to put it. Onunga lists several key lessons. First, there's self-awareness. Silence is like a mirror. It forces you to look at who you really are, stripped bare, not the version you project. It cuts through the pretense. You have to sit with your actual thoughts, your real feelings. That's where self-understanding starts.
Confronting.
Definitely. Then there's listening, real listening. Silence teaches us to hear the meaning behind the words, not just the words themselves. He brings up the biblical idea of God's gentle whisper heard in stillness, not in the earthquake or fire. It's a metaphor for finding the signal in the noise.
Okay.
It also teaches patience, which, let's face it, is countercultural today. Everything's instant. Silence slows us down. It deepens us, kind of like a farmer waiting patiently for rain. It's about understanding natural rhythms, inner growth, and strength, too. It takes real strength, real courage to say nothing sometimes. With strength, as he says, the weak shout, but the strong can remain calm. Think about a lion, perfectly still, that commands respect, that quiet power.
I like that. The lion.
Yeah. And clarity, big one. Like a painter stepping back from the canvas to see the whole picture. Silence gives you that space. Priorities can rearrange themselves. Decisions become clear. He warns, many mistakes in life are made because we reacted too quickly. Silence allows for thoughtful response, not just reaction.
That makes sense.
And finally, it fosters connection with the divine, or your deepest self. Prayer in solitude becomes less about talking and more about listening, that be still and know idea.
It's powerful stuff, especially when he points out how modern life is almost designed to fight silence. Do you ever catch yourself feeling bored the second things get quiet? I know I do. That reflex to grab the phone. And Onunga says something radical. Boredom is the doorway to creativity. We just don't see it that way, do we?
We really don't. And his insight here is key. Your discomfort with boredom isn't a personal failing. It's actually a missed chance. He challenges you to see those quiet gaps not as voids to be immediately filled with distraction, but as fertile ground. Ground where original thoughts can actually sprout.
Fertile ground,
That's
like that.
Yeah, when your mind isn't constantly being fed external stuff, it has to start generating its own content. Its own ideas, its own entertainment. It's like letting a field lie fallow so it can become richer for the next planting. So the takeaway. Try to embrace those lulls. They aren't wasted time. They could be launch pads for real innovation. And connecting this to the bigger picture, Onunga is clear. Silence isn't an interruption of life. It's part of life's natural rhythm. Think about music. It's not just the notes, it's the pauses between the notes that give it shape and meaning. Life's the same. It needs both action and silence. It's essential for harmony, for inner balance.
And that inner balance, that richness we find in the quiet that directly fuels our big ideas, right? Our creativity. It makes
Yeah.
you wonder, where could your next breakthrough idea come from if you just gave it a bit more quiet space? Chapter 4 is Solitude and Creativity, where great ideas are born. He claims, every great idea has its birthplace, and more often than not, that birthplace is solitude.
And he backs this up with some fantastic historical examples. It shows this isn't just wishful thinking, it's a pattern. Look at Isaac Newton. During the Great Plague, he was forced into solitude at Woolsthorpe. For him, it wasn't downtime. It was intensely productive. Calculus, optics, gravity, these huge breakthroughs happened then. Onunga puts it brilliantly. What the world called quarantine, Newton turned into creative revolution.
Wow.
Or Albert Einstein. He famously loved his solitary walks. That's where he wrestled with relativity. Einstein himself said, the monotony and solitude of a quiet life stimulates the creative mind.
He really valued it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And artists, too. Beethoven, composing symphonies while wandering alone, letting that inner world pour out into music. Why does it work? Onunga says, noise drowns possibility. Solitude gives you the safety to fail privately and the freedom to imagine boldly. It just creates the right conditions for your subconscious to make those unexpected connections, to unlock genuine originality.
That's incredible. It really shows how people doing groundbreaking work often deliberately create that space. And he ties this straight into mental clarity in Chapter 5. Solitude and mental clarity, distinguishing signal from noise. This feels crucial for you, for anyone feeling overwhelmed by information overload, by all the competing voices in your head.
He nails the definitions here. He calls the noise things like endless chatter, trivial, urgent, but unimportant distractions. The kind of pings, the social media scroll, the news alerts, stuff that grabs your attention but doesn't really add value.
Yeah, the static.
Exactly. And then there's the signal. That's the central truth, the guiding principle, the core mission, the voice that actually matters.
Yeah.
Your intuition, your values, your purpose, what really counts. And Onunga's diagnosis is stark. Most people live buried in noise, chasing shadows, reacting to distractions, mistaking movement for progress. Ouch.
That hits home.
Right. He says, it is only in solitude that the signal becomes audible. Think about figures like Jesus in the wilderness, facing temptation, or Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, writing his meditations amidst chaos, or Nelson Mandela in prison. These weren't escapes. They were deep dives into solitude that brought immense clarity. They could filter out the noise and focus on fundamental truths, guiding their actions. Solitude is like the tuning dial. It helps us adjust the frequency until the true signal comes through, cuts through the static.
Okay, so that clarity, finding the signal, that leads to strength, right? Which brings us to chapter 6, Strength in Stillness, How Solitude Builds Emotional Resilience. Life throws storms at all of us, big ones, small ones. How do you cope? Onunga suggests that cultivating solitude helps you find this hidden reservoir of resilience.
He defines resilience really clearly, the ability to bend without breaking, to endure without collapsing, to rise again after being struck down. It's not about dodging difficulty. It's about having the inner strength to navigate it. And solitude, he argues, builds this strength because it makes you meet yourself, honestly. Face your emotions, strengthen your inner core without leaning on external props. He uses that great tree analogy again. The strongest trees are not those planted in easy soil. They are the ones that endure droughts and storms.
Right, their roots go deeper.
Exactly. They push deeper, anchor themselves more firmly, drawing strength from within.
And he really hammers home that real strength does not come from outside. It comes from within. It's not about avoiding pain. It's about building the capacity to handle it.
Precisely. And the key insight there from Onunga is that this inner strength isn't just there. It's actively forged in those quiet moments. Solitude helps us actually process our emotions instead of just running from them or pushing them down. Think of King David in the Psalms, pouring out raw fear, anger, grief, and solitary reflection. He wasn't just venting. He was finding resolve through that deep honesty. Or look at Gandhi and Mandela. They used the extreme solitude of prison not to break, but to strengthen their resolve, clarify their purpose. They came out resilient, not bitter. Their moral compass was sharper. As Onunga says, resilience is not born in the noise of crowds, but in the quiet of solitude. It's in that introspection you find out what you're really made of.
So this deep dive has shown us these giants, thinkers, prophets, leaders who use solitude. But what about us, living now in what he calls modern chaos, with screens buzzing, endless demands? Finding quiet feels like a luxury item sometimes. How do we make that leap?
It's a great question. Onunga reminds us of those historical figures, Moses, Elijah, Buddha, Muhammad finding revelation in isolation, Newton, Einstein having breakthroughs in quiet concentration, leaders like Jesus, Lincoln, Churchill, Mandela. Mandela transforming 27 years in prison into a forge of resilience. What links them isn't just genius, it's their intentional use of solitude as a tool for development. Their stories aren't just history, they're proof of a timeless principle.
And he contrasts that with today, calling our time perhaps the noisiest age humanity has ever known. A storm of voices, screens, and endless demands. That feels so true. Does your day start like that? The digital storm pouring in the second you open your eyes? It's so common.
It is, and Onunga's diagnosis is sharp. The tragedy of this storm is not simply distraction, it is disconnection. We're surrounded by voices, yet disconnected from our own. Think about that. This constant digital flood, he argues, gives us tons of information, but maybe steals wisdom. It offers surface connection, but weakens real communion. Endless content, but leaves us feeling empty, lacking clarity. In this climate, choosing solitude becomes genuinely countercultural, a radical act. And it's not just philosophy. He points out, modern psychology confirms, solitude is not an indulgence. It is medicine for the soul. It's actually necessary for our well-being.
It's fascinating, too, that even super successful modern leaders, you mentioned Steve Jobs and his walks, Bill Gates and his think weeks, they actively protect their solitude.
They absolutely do. They get it. For them, it wasn't choosing between work and quiet time. It was knowing that quiet time fuels the best work, the innovation. Jobs used those walks to untangle Apple's big problems. Gates' think weeks were deliberate withdrawals to read, reflect, strategize without interruption.
Wow, a whole week.
Yeah. They understood that to lead effectively, to innovate, to stay clear in a complex world, they needed that deliberate quiet. It was like their secret weapon. Gave them perspective others missed in the daily noise.
Okay, so this all sounds great, necessary even. But practically speaking, for you listening, how do we actually do this? How do we cultivate solitude day to day? Chapter 9 gives us some real practical steps.
Yes, and it's about small, consistent choices.
Yeah.
Not necessarily huge retreats. He suggests starting with morning silence. Just a few minutes before the phone comes on, before the day rushes in. He calls it a seed of peace.
Yeah.
Create sacred spaces, even just a quiet corner in your home, maybe phone-free, a little sanctuary. He loves technology Sabbaths, choosing specific times, maybe an hour, maybe an evening, maybe a day, to fully disconnect from devices.
That sounds hard but good.
It is. Also, simply walking alone, no headphones, just letting your thoughts wander. Journaling in solitude is another powerful one. Getting thoughts out on paper, untangling emotions, even mini retreats in the day, like 5 minutes just breathing or taking lunch alone without scrolling, small pockets of quiet. And a big one, learning to say no, protecting your time, pruning commitments to make space. He really emphasizes solitude is not found, it is cultivated. You have to make it happen.
It takes an effort. It's cultivated. I like that. So once you start cultivating it, how does it fit into a successful, balanced life? It's not about becoming a hermit, right? Chapter 10 tackles this.
Exactly right. Not about becoming a hermit at all. Onunga's vision is balanced. Not an either. It is a rhythm, a dance between presence and absence.
Mm-hmm.
He uses Jesus' example again, withdrew often to pray, but also fully engaged with people, taught, healed, dined with friends. It's about filling your own well in solitude so you have something genuine to offer when you engage with the world. He encourages redefining success, not just about busyness or external achievements, but measured by meaning, built on character, purpose, and faith. A truly grounded person, he says, develops an inner sanctuary. They can sit in a crowded room and still be calm because they carry that peace within them.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, this inner fullness actually strengthens relationships. You connect with others from a place of wholeness, not neediness.
Yeah.
Ultimately, his idea is beautiful. Solitude fuels our community, and community draws strength from our solitude. It's a cycle. Personal depth enhances the collective.
What a fantastic journey we've taken in this deep dive. We started by pulling apart solitude and loneliness, saw silence as a teacher, then a cradle for creativity and clarity. We explored how it builds resilience, why it's so vital in today's noisy world, and how it underpins a truly balanced life.
And it all leads to what Onunga calls the final gift of solitude, illumination. He says, in being alone, we are never truly alone. Solitude is this path that turns emptiness into fullness, chaos into calm, distraction into focus, fear into strength. It's where we connect with what's most essential, with our deepest selves.
That is a powerful thought to leave you with, Anunka. Reuben Juma Onunga offers this simple, profound invitation. Make solitude your friend. Do not fear it, do not flee from it, do not confuse it with loneliness. Welcome it into your life as a teacher, a healer, a companion. Guard it as you would guard your most precious treasure. For in solitude you will find yourself, you will find clarity, you will find strength, and most of all, you will find God. From isolation to illumination, that is the journey of solitude. And once you have tasted its power, you will never be the same again.